Welcome, listeners, to episode 67 of Cocktail Hour. I'm Andy.
Oh, yeah, I'm Megan.
I was going to say, come on.
I'm waiting for Sherry.
That's fantastic. And I'm going to get the Audible pitch out of the way right now. So bear with me, listeners. Here we go. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/cocktail hour. Over 100,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. So get your butts over there and sign up. That's all I got to say about that. So today we are welcoming prolific fanfic writer?
Not really.
Okay. Sure. Online fiction writer.
There we go.
There you go. Zee.
Thank you. Hey. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. You have a lot of stories on your own, and you partnered with Windstar on several.
Yes. And
I went and looked at your page over at the Academy of Bards, and it's like, wow, how long have you been writing?
It makes me, I think, a little sad to think back on how many years. I guess not sad, but I started off when I was in college, so I feel so different than when I started. But yeah, I started in 2001. I'm not actually certain when I actually posted my first story, but I started writing around 2001.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And you've got
a long time,
and you've got lots of little accolades and swollen butt awards on some of these. Because I'm scrolling down, going, "Oh, it's a bud, it's a bud."
Which surprises me because that was, I think, the hardest component to start writing. Was, I guess, the sexy scenes or whatever.
Yeah.
And more self-conscious or whatnot, but now it's ridiculous. I mean, I get some emails about that, like, oh, how do you, especially because Windstar and I write together, so, and we, we're not a couple or anything like that. We both have different partners. I'm like, oh, is that I? And when you're writing, it's not sexy. We've written some scenes back and forth where I've made them utterly just ridiculous, or we've gone back and like, I don't think that's physically possible. I don't care that they're werewolves. I still don't think they can do that. And so we'll crack each other up. And honestly, I'm like, I think this is the same sex scene over and over again. I'm not certain.
That's fantastic.
So.
Well, I have been reading your work for actually quite a long time. You independently, and then your stories with Windstar, and it's interesting because when I read your stuff that you wrote independently, your sense of humor really pops, whereas although it's still in your collaborative effort, it's not like nearly in the forefront,
Yeah. No, I get that. I can see that.
Megan, you want to chime in on anything here?
Yeah, I was going to agree with you. I just found out on Tuesday that I'd be subbing in for the Rev, so I mistakenly thought, I'll just go read all the stuff that Zee's written.
Oh, right then. You really did the homework.
I plowed through a lot of stuff, and what it reminded me of is when I first started reading online fiction, I stumbled onto Windstar and Zee's, some of their stories, as well as Zee's standalones. And they are some of the best online fiction. I'm avoiding using fan fiction because they aren't uber.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly reminded of how much I enjoyed reading them, and I didn't make it through all of your stuff, but I still have them loaded on my ebook reader, and I'm gonna be continuing to read them. But you're right, the Airwaves and Cheeseburger, which were Zee's standalones, definitely had that sort of madcap humor and situations, and you can see it in some of the others, but it really stands out. So from my question to you is, how do you work collaboratively? Like, you obviously, or at least I can't see that one of you writes one scene and one writes the other, because the stories always seem to be very cohesive.
Well, they're cohesive now. Blood and Honor was the first story we wrote together, and my partner was reading it over, and she's like, "You're giving me whiplash. You guys really, your styles are not similar." And I don't know how many times we had to go back and work on transitions, and it took 3 years before that story, from start to finish, before we actually released that story. I want to say it took 3 years, because it was the first story we wrote together, and it was just, our styles just didn't mesh. We worked well together, but our writing styles were so different, because I sort of vomit words onto the screen or onto the page. There's so much grammar abuse, it's not even funny. I don't stop. It's just literally just a free flow of ideas onto, the digital page or whatnot. Any good grammar or punctuation we have is all Windstar's doing. She's really more methodical and such like that. But after, Blood and Honor, where we sort of worked out the kinks, we do write back and forth with email if we're going through a particular scene. If one of us is really into a story and we really have an idea, like something really cool that has to happen, we will write like a whole scene and send it back, and then the other person will be like, well, I really don't see this character doing this, and they'll make little tweaks, but there will be just huge sections where one of us just had this idea with a story and just went with it, and then the other person will go back and make tweaks to it. So, but that sort of collaboration didn't just happen right away. It really was, according to my partner, she'd tell you it's very painful.
Well, it definitely it works now, and as I said, I've really been enjoying rereading a lot of this, and I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, oh, that was Zee, because it's been a long time since I read them, and I'm like, oh, okay, I remember this story. I really liked it, and I still liked it, which is definitely standing the test of time.
Yeah, that's great.
With Cheeseburger and Airwaves, are those early stories? I wasn't able to find the dates on.
Those are very early stories. Both of those were written for Academy of Bards challenges, I think. Mm-hmm. So Cheeseburger in Paradise, we had a list of parameters. I can't remember what the parameters were, like if we had to use certain words or actually, I think that one you were given the story starter, and you were given like a snippet and you needed to work a story around it. I can't remember exactly what it was, but those are very early stories. I actually did a lot of the challenges to start off, and then Windstar and I write such monsters that we're always like, oh, what do we have that we can use for Halloween or something? Because we don't actually anymore just be like, oh, we're going to write this for Halloween or something like that, because we're literally just working on stories that are, end up being 300 to 500 pages. So, but yeah, those are Airwaves was one of the first stories I wrote, I believe. And Cheeseburgers is around, those are some of the first stuff I've written.
So of this prolific list of online fiction, what would you say was the most fun of the stories to write?
Comic Book Life remains one of my favorites that I wrote solo. It was just when I first started writing and writing solo by myself, my story ideas were like a joke. I actually would premise the start of the story with some joke, and that was actually my story starter. But Comic Book Life, because a total comic book geek, the fact that Marvel is making all these movies is totally awesome in my book, and was sort of just an homage to that, and I probably made fun of some stereotypes in there or something like that, but that remains some of my favorite in there, especially the kid in the later scenes, just with the inappropriate words as kids do and stuff like that. So that was one of the most fun. It just sort of flowed. It just came pretty easy. I do think I went back and scrapped the ending and rewrote it, but other than that, it flowed pretty well.
What would you say, the converse now, what would you say was the most difficult or challenging story to write?
It's actually a story that we haven't released. And it's actually what holds up the whole mythos of the sequel, The Secret History of Vampires, is in Chance, there's a character who comes in called Bones, who's a hellhound. She has her own story, and there's a lot of elements in that story which affect other stories, but it's an utter, I don't know, and Windstar might be unhappy with me to call it crap, but it just didn't work. We've rewritten it 3 times, and we sort of just had to put it aside. And there are certain elements that we need to grab and keep as we rewrite, because they do they ripple into other stories in that universe. And so it just sits on a shelf, and we dust it off every once in a while and try it again. But Bones just really doesn't want to have her story told, and it's utterly just pulling teeth. And it's just like, if it's pulling teeth to write the story, you need to go back to the drawing board and figure out some other way to tell the story.
Can I just interject and tell you to finish it?
You and everybody else.
Yeah, I loved Chance. Those are 2 of the stories. I read Chance and Zoya last night and the night before, and I was kind of hoping that Bones would be the next one.
Bones is supposed to be the next one. You are right.
Yeah, well then get your ass in gear. Get off this phone call.
Wait. We got to finish the phone call. Hold up now. I mean, it's gone 8 years, right? So, come on now.
Yeah.
Well, no, Zoya came out a couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah, Secret Histories was that first, or was Chance first? I can't remember now. My partner's Chance. Telling me it was Chance. So it was Chance, Secret Histories, and then Zoya. So, yeah, we have a whole bunch of stories planned in that universe. And some of them have actually been written, but we can't release them because they don't make any sense without Bones' story being told.
Oh, damn hellhounds.
They're kind of divas in their own right.
Well, Megan and I actually reread Airwaves and Cheeseburger to talk about those 2 shows.
Sure, they are quite short, but they're definitely good. They're definitely good reads. Definitely.
All right, well, let's start with Airwaves then. All right, who wants to do a quick summary of Airwaves?
Oh, you're going to throw that at me. I hate when you guys do that to
me. Well, we can actually just read it from the website. How do we do that? Let's do that.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Airwaves. What happens when you used to be a big fish in a big pond, and now you're a little fish in a little pond, but still have the big fish attitude? Jessica's going to find out. Coming from a cushy news anchor job at a large market TV station and sinking to the small-time news host position at the local NPR affiliate just might drive Jessica insane. But to top it off, the only one who will work with her is Sean Wildman. Sean has the ability to grate on anybody's nerves. He got some. Just read that. He got some crazy ass characters in Airwaves. My God.
What's your intention with Airwaves to make it into a series? Because it was.
Yes, I at one time even wrote a sequel, but it sucked. So it never came to be.
Well, when has that ever stopped online fiction from being published? Come on.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Well, I'd love to see a sequel. The Airwaves is great in that it was a larger cast of characters than you normally see. And I think Madcap definitely like it's almost like a screwball comedy with all the sisters and the family dynamics. And what I really liked about it was you didn't like do a big information dump. You kind of figured out what the family dynamics were as you made your way along.
Yep.
Because there's five siblings, but they're not all of them are full siblings. There's a bunch of half sisters and one's trans, and it's a wild family, and definitely Sean is probably the wildest of them all.
Yep.
Yeah, that was. I used to tell the strength of my stories by how good the supporting cast was.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Joss Whedon who said that your story is only as strong as a supporting character, so everyone has to matter. And so that really stuck with me as I sort of started writing, was that everybody, regardless of how small they are, they make the story move. So they have to have a point to being there. And honestly, you guys have read Airwaves. I haven't read it in years. My earlier stuff still makes me cringe at a little bit. There's a little self-consciousness there. And although sometimes I'll be like, oh, that's better than I remember it. But yeah, no, that was, the supporting characters always, especially when I write solo, have always actually been really important to me. They all have little side stories, and always something very important. And actually the trans character was very important because I sort of also liked when I first started writing, because I was in college, I guess it was like pushing boundaries and stuff that you didn't really see in fiction, I wanted to put in fiction. So.
Well, I think you were. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say just a little Easter egg for you.
Yeah, I was. I think you really succeeded with the cast of characters. So I'd be happy to read a story about I was interested enough that I would like to read a story about the other sisters and whatever trouble they got themselves into. It was kind of disconcerting at first because it starts with Gabriel or Gabrielle. It didn't have two L's and an E, so I guess her name was Gabriel. It starts off, and she's the. I might have to remind you. She's the station manager for the public radio, and I thought it was going to be about her, and then she was just she brought the two characters together and sort of introduced them. But it was kind of interesting to, I had to shift gears because I was waiting for something to happen with Gabriel. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. It's Sean, not Gabriel. Because I didn't read the intro blurb. I try to avoid them. Like to be surprised.
Well, and also when I started writing, I tried to make fun of, I think, the Uber Xena Gabrielle.
Yes.
Expectations.
Yeah. Well, I'm personally really happy that they're not Ubers. Because I read a lot of them and I got tired of them. So I'm always really happy to read online fiction that doesn't have the Uber stereotypes. I still enjoy them, but I get tired after a while of the same.
Yeah, you need
patterns.
Yep. You need a little fresh air, a little fresh breeze. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I used to use those I guess stereotypes, for lack of a better word, as sort of a hook, and then you'd think you were coming in to read something, but by the time you realized it wasn't about that, you were already suckered into the story.
So eloquent. Suckered in. I love that.
Yeah, you had no other recourse but to finish reading the story.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does suck you right in, and it is madcap. That's a really good word to describe the story. It's just madcap adventure. And that's Sean, my God. I just cracked up every time I turned around with that character.
Well, I loved it when she kept calling her Shira, Princess Power, and she brought the doll in and left it on her desk. It just made me laugh my ass off.
Or how she couldn't get into the station because they thought she was some homeless waif. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
So maybe Z, you should go back and read Airwaves again. I'm just saying. Just throwing that out there.
Well, as you're talking about things, I'm totally remembering them.
Uh-huh.
Like, oh yeah, I did read that.
That's right.
So if anyone has not read it, definitely read it. It's a short story. I think it's only like 80 screens. Sorry, I use an e-reader. It's about 80 screens. So about 80 pages, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It goes really, really fast. I dare you to put it down. You'll read it all in one sitting.
Yep.
Because it's like one of those things that just sucks you in, and you have to know what's going to happen next because you just can't believe what they just did.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of jogging memories, I actually remember why I wrote that story. It was for Mavis. I was on her Yahoo group, and she did some sort of contest thing for her birthday. We were all supposed to write her a story, so that's what I ended up writing.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that is neat. Wow, you've been connected to the... that would be like considered the Xenoverse, isn't it? With Mavis, because she writes a lot of Ubers, though, that kind of mirror the whole archetypes of Xena and Gabrielle.
Yeah.
And a lot of smutty stuff, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, she does.
That's right. Yep. Always known for that Sunday
I stumbled
Wednesday.
across one of her collections of Sunday afternoon or Tuesday afternoon or something like that, and I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, I think I tried to read them all, and I just got to a point where it was like, whew! I hit my threshold for erotica. You know, it's like, oh my god, I never think that was possible. But she's got a lot of she has like a Sunday matinee or a Wednesday matinee or something. But yeah,
something like that, yeah.
She's got 2 of them, and wow, there's a lot of them on there.
Yeah.
But this is about Z, so we got to circle back around. So yeah, check out Airwaves. It's pretty awesome. You can find it at the Academy of Bards on Z's page. And then the second one we read was Cheeseburger in Paradise. And I actually walked around my neighborhood this morning, and I have a program that does text-to-speech, and I loaded it up and let the computer voice read it to me, and it took walking all the way around, which is kind of interesting. But Cheeseburger in Paradise, your summary here says, Shay, a resort restaurant's general manager and all-around beach bum, finds her world shaken when a young blonde vacationer walks into the restaurant's bar. Sutton rocks her world and then leaves. Why? All right, who wants to talk? Who wants to start out?
All right, Zee, why?
Why?
You can blame the Academy of Bards. That was one of their challenges. Like, who writes these synopsises? That's silly.
Oh, you didn't write that summary?
I don't know. It's possible. I think the worst thing about when you're submitting stuff to the Academy is writing a synopsis. I think for Blood and Honor, we came up with something utterly ridiculous or something. It was just like, yeah, read it or don't.
I've heard that from authors, that they find that writing the synopsis is the hardest part of the whole process. That you're trying to condense, I don't know how many pages, into this, this 4 or 5 sentences or a paragraph at the most to try and hook in your reader. And,
right.
You don't want them to just dismiss your entire work just because you can't hook them in a small summary.
Yeah, it really, the synopsis is your hook. It's like reading the back of a paperback,
Yep.
The cover and the back, the back page. If you don't, the cover's too cheesy and the synopsis too boring, are you really it's your time. What is your time worth?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because I know I do that when I go and read, if I'm in the mood to read something and I want to buy something new, and I'll go and just start randomly looking at different authors on, Bold Strokes or whoever, and just start reading what the stories are about. And if they don't catch me, I move on.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll admit my shallowness. I ended up starting reading a lot of British suspense or police procedurals because I don't know who the British publisher was, but they had the most beautiful covers. They were absolutely amazing. So I ended up buying the books based solely on the covers. They turned out to be really good books, but same thing goes with the blurb at the back.
Yeah.
There's been a few books where the blurb was not promising at all, and I ended up reading the book in Finding the Blur had nothing to do with the book whatsoever. It barely had the same names.
Well, how the hell does that happen?
I don't know. I think for published books, the authors aren't always the ones to write them.
That's true, I think.
Yeah. And the same thing would go for, I think the cover artists, like, especially in the fantasy, science fiction genres. I don't think the cover artists actually read the books, because quite often they'll have a picture of somebody who's like, tall, blonde, statuesque, and the main character is short, tubby and with dark hair. Like, it just, you're just wondering, like, who is this person? Like,
That's not right.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Well, I found Cheeseburger to be quite different from Airwaves. There was still an element of humor in there, but it was a completely different story, or a different style of story. Obviously, it was a different story.
I wasn't going to say
I just keep writing the same one over and over again. So
yeah, exactly. Some people that works. But it was a completely different style of story. Because I know my experience has been more with your collaborative efforts with Windstar, and I really like your fantasy, like the Blood and Honor and Chance and that sort of thing. And this was unlike anything else I had read by you guys. And it was definitely different from Airwaves. Still very enjoyable, but it was more of a, I don't know.
It was a little more serious.
A little bit more serious, but a little bit more like action, adventure, suspense.
Yep.
And they fell into the sheets pretty damn fast, too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think back what the parameters for the Academy of Bards Challenge was, and I think it could only be so long, and I think I decided that I was going to try to do, I think that was one of the first sex scenes I actually wrote. I was just like, well, I'm going to try it, I'm going to see how it works out, and it was a little, I think, nerve-wracking. And also, I don't use an outline when I write, so I think the whole how everything sort of ended up going was a surprise to me as it was to everybody else. So
that's funny.
I don't use. A lot of people plot out what they're going to do, and I don't. But I sometimes know, like, I want this to happen, and this would be funny if this happens, and I think I want it to end like this. That's sort of how I write. Which, if you're, a control freak, or that can really, kind of be hard on a person. But I find if I actually write out like an outline or something like that, it's too much expectations.
So you don't even plot out when you do your collaborative efforts?
Nope.
Wow.
We're frequently, one of us will get it when we're writing collaboratively. One of us will be like, we'll have an idea. So we'll write out a scene. And we'll send it to the other person. And be like, well, that's kind of interesting. I kind of like where you're going with this. What are your plans for it? I don't know. What do you think? Which is why when we finish the story, I think our beta readers like, really? And we have a lot of drop plot points, and we'll be like, oh, yeah, we really should go back and just get rid of that character, or did we have a plan for this? We're actually much better now about going back and rereading it and being like, yeah, we totally dropped this, so what are we going to do with this? We need to rewrite something. So over time, I think we've gotten better about it. Or we'll be like, oh, well, we dropped that there, but, when we write a sequel, we'll totally address that, and then we forget by the time we get around to writing a sequel. But we have very good intentions.
So with your readers, I'm sure you've gotten lots of feedback over the years. What seems to be the most popular story with the readers?
Secret Histories.
Surprise!
Hands down, Secret History of Vampires. And honestly, I think that's not one of my favorites that we wrote. I was always surprised that it caught on the way it did, but I think we wrote that right before vampires sort of re-exploded into our popular culture.
Yeah.
Like we wrote that, and then suddenly, like, vampires were everywhere. They, starting to get TV shows again and movies, and really, urban fantasy sort of kicked off sort of when we wrote Secret Histories and Chance. I mean, urban fantasy fiction really just exploded.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it, people generally like it. People really, really got into Alexei, and really, for some reason, it just caught in right before that exploded.
Timing was right. Timing is everything.
Timing is everything. But to me, it's not one of our more well-written stories. I mean, there was a lot. I mean, it's pretty much an alternative history story. We did do a little bit of research, but honestly, we should have done a lot more research. Thankfully, our readers can overlook that. At one point, I remember researching whether or not they actually had strike matches. I don't know why that was like, oh, I must research this. I'm like, of all the things, what matches at this time? I don't know. But it could really benefit from, an editor smacking us around and having us tighten it up. But it was just, I want to blame Windstar for that story, honestly.
Seeing as she's not on call, I'm good with that.
Yeah, that works.
All right, fair enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that I would like a sequel to that, and so would a few of our listeners. Elena emailed me and said, "Would you ask Zee when there's going to be a sequel to that story?" Yeah.
Well, we'll get on that. We actually tried writing the sequel twice. I wish we would have just gone right into another sequel. I think by letting it go, I think we got caught up in Greyline. We sort of worked on Greyline and Zoya at the same time, and really caught up in Greyline. But oops, I knocked over a water bottle. I wish we sort of would have just gone right in and written that sequel, because now I feel like there's so much expectation to have this amazing sequel where Alexei comes back and it's some bodice ripper with her and Katya or something like that. And that I don't know. I think we're a little nervous that we won't meet those expectations.
Yeah, I can see that.
But we tried. We've tried writing a sequel twice, and honestly, they were not good.
Well, we want it to be good. It doesn't have to be spectacular, but it definitely got to be good.
Yeah. So and I think we went back and we're like, okay, so this isn't working. Why isn't it working? And we're like, I think we need to define the modern world that we created a little bit more, and so we're going to do that with telling the story with Bones, and then you'll see Nikki. She'll have her own story. The Hunter, I don't know if we've actually introduced her yet. She's in Zoya.
She's in Zoya. She's Mary, I think. Or they're all married.
Actually, all the Hunters are married, yeah. So, and the Hunter will have her own story. And then...
Okay, Zee, stop. You're just, making me, die in here. Because I want to read them all, and they're not written yet.
So
it's
I think, yeah, it is. Okay, you're right. I'll be quiet.
Tease.
But I think Windstar and I sort of like, why isn't this working? And we went back and we need to define this universe that we created, because it's sort of an alternative Earth, alternative history. And if we don't define some certain things, then if we don't define the world that Alexei's going to wake back into, then I don't think it's going to work. And I think that was what was failing when we tried to write the sequel a couple of times.
How long does it normally take? You said that you don't really outline. You just sort of write off the cuff. Sort of, you have a general idea of where you want to go and are surprised as the readers when you get there. For a story like Cheeseburger or Airways, which are, I would classify them as short stories. You bang them out in a week? Does it take a month?
Well, when everything's said and done, you work with a beta reader. Oftentimes they're they're doing it on their own time, so that you're kind of at their mercy and stuff like that. It can take a month when everything's said and done. But for me, just to for airwaves came really fast. That I think took me 72 hours.
Wow.
That was really well, and I when I decided I was going to write the story for Mavis for her birthday, I remember just having writer's block. I'm like, I don't know what to write, and saying well, write what you know. And I actually worked at an NPR affiliate, so I just took that and then ran with it. So that was sort of my starting point. And once I had that idea, the characters just sort of appeared, and it just went very quickly. Cheeseburger, because I think I was given the synopsis of, I was given something like a little starter or something like that. It took like a week, but then I actually think it's a shorter story than Airwaves. It's just this wasn't what I would have come up with. So how do I work with this? How do I make it something that's mine? And so that took a little bit longer. When you're talking about the collaborations with Windstar and I, stories can take 6 months to a year to write.
Wow.
Well, they are long.
Yeah, they are long, no doubt.
Yeah. Maybe unnecessarily long, but
no, you know what? I didn't think so. Oddly enough, Secret History of Vampires is not my all-time favorite. I decided not to reread it for this show. But I think that's probably one of the longest ones, isn't it? I haven't read Grey Line yet, though. Someone told me that was really long.
Well, the thing with Grey Line is it's actually 3 separate stories.
Okay.
They would, but when we submitted them, they got stuck together as a continuation of the same story, and they're actually separate stories with a jog of time between each story. So it is the longest story, but honestly, they are separate stories.
Okay.
They would be a trilogy. But yeah, I think Grey Line took the longest because we were trying to get it out for Halloween, and we ended up not actually getting it out until the following Halloween.
Oh, wow.
That's a bit of slippage.
Well, and honestly, we gave our beta reader a lot of work on that story.
Yeah.
Most of that was waiting for her to get back to us, and then us going back through all her edits and crying a little and agreeing that she was right.
That's fantastic.
So, have you ever taken? Well, obviously you've gotten less than stellar comments from your beta readers, and are they hard to take?
No, not really, because with the beta reader, I'm all like, because sometimes we tend to break beta readers a lot. I think it's the sheer volume that we sometimes send at them. We've been through, I don't know how many beta readers, a lot. But if I don't agree with them, then I just don't use their edit suggestion.
Yeah.
Ultimately it's my story. I can be the dictator of my story as much as I want to be. Now they could still be right, but I don't have to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when I wrote solo, I had a beta reader who just didn't get my sense of humor and kept trying to make edits. I'm like, well, to make the edit, you don't get a joke. So I have ignored it, but I will read everything. Their comments don't really bother me. I did have one beta reader say, "Oh, I can't edit this; it's crap," and I was like, "Well, okay, you don't have to be our beta reader anymore."
Wow, actually said that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and that story ended up being a 5-time number 1 on the Athenium. So.
Yeah, see, raspberry to whoever that beta was.
So. So I mean, I take it with a grain of salt, and I try to read every suggestion that they give us. I automatically assume that they understand punctuation and grammar way better than I do, so I generally take those to heart. But I read all the comments, and I can agree with it or not agree with it. It's just an opinion. So I don't take any of it to heart, really.
Well, it sounds like you got a great attitude.
I'm pretty laid back.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's honestly, I do it for free, and the beta reader's doing it for free, so you can't really get upset with each other about it.
Yeah, that's true. Have you thought about taking any of your stories to a publisher?
We have, and actually, Windstar and I have actually started seriously talking about it. Because she is Canadian. There are some legal logistics about publishing that we might need to work through, and then for a long time it was me getting over like, well, if we took Secret Histories and published it, would you really pay for something that you can read for free? But we went back and looked over Secret Histories. I'm like, we could totally rewrite, clean this up, tighten it up, plug in some dropped plot holes. I think there was a plot we were going somewhere and we just decided it didn't work, and I don't think we ever cleaned it up very well. I'm like, we could turn this into a very tight, clean story, and it could change a lot.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are authors that started out in the online community, and they keep some of them keep their stories, the original stories, on the net for free, but they've retooled them or added alternate endings or additional content that wasn't online. And right. I think that's really fantastic.
Yeah. So, I mean, and some of the stuff, if we have been talking about it, and honestly, I'm gonna throw Windstar underneath the bus on that one. She's the one who's been dragging her feet about it. But she really likes the idea of providing it for free, and it does take a lot of pressure off. I mean, once we start publishing and people are paying for it, I think they own you a little bit, and we're just like, well, I'm sorry you don't like it, but it's free. There's a lot of freedom in that, to try things that don't necessarily work, and to try things. Mm-hmm. Just hey, let's just try this, see where it goes. People don't like it, whatever. It was free, and you're not really beholden to anyone by You didn't like it. That's okay. Didn't cost you anything.
I can see that, but still,
But the other thing is also the publisher's deadlines. So then you're under their thumb. And if it takes you guys a year and you're still not happy that you're retooling it, your publisher's not going to be happy with that.
Yeah. And honestly, if we did look at publishing, it'd probably be self-publishing.
Oh, okay.
Because I know I've read a little bit about how some of the publishing houses work, and I don't know that would work for Windstar and I. I mean, we you really have to keep your day job. You can't make money at this. We'd both have to work, and then be editing and writing. I think at some point it might stop being fun, and we might just stop writing. Oh. So.
We don't want that.
Yeah, we don't want that. No publication for you.
Yeah, so I think if we look at publishing, it'd probably be self-publishing on Smashwords, or I think Amazon does it, as it does some self-publishing now too.
Yeah, they do.
Well, the whole self-publishing thing has just taken off, and I've discovered some very good authors who self-publish. And unfortunately, there's some that aren't quite as good. But the nice thing is because you and Windstar you almost have like a built-in following, so you already have a reputation that if you do move into self-publishing, you've got a built-in base at least to start with, and then you can expand from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
which is nice. A lot of people don't have that.
Yeah, so we are seriously, it's been 8-10 years since we started writing together, and we are seriously, ready to take that next step, I think. But it took us that long.
It's time for a commitment. Come on now.
Yeah, it is. It's time for a commitment.
Sign a contract.
Sign a contract.
So you don't, at least as far as I've been able to discern in your stories, you don't seem to write the Gabrielle Zena Uber, which a lot of online fiction writers sort of, or at least the ones that I've run across, started off with. So what drew you? Like, I know that the whole Xena Gabrielle stories and recreations, that really gave a big impetus to online fiction and a lot of the forums like the Athenaeum and the Academy of the Bards. What drew you into it? Because as I said, I don't see a lot of Uber types in your stories.
Well, I think that the fan fiction and the Uber fiction had its place, and it was a great starting point in the online culture. I mean, I grew up in Idaho. Xena was shown at 1:00 in the morning. I didn't see an episode until I think the series was almost over, and I was like, I had a lesbian friend of mine was like, oh, you have to totally like look into this, and so I typed in Xena, and for some reason it took me, like, the first link was to it was an Australian site with fan fiction. Auspix or something.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I can never say it.
Yeah, and that was like the first link, and I clicked on that. I was like, holy goodness, what is all this stuff?
No, you can curse. Come on now. You say, holy fuck.
I was going to say holy crap, but...
Oh, that'll work too.
And, I mean, what did my friend send me into? And it took me forever to, like, figure out it was an actual TV show. Because, like, the first link, when I looked up Xena, was, like, all this fan fiction and stuff. And it was great because, I was in Idaho. There wasn't a lot of gay culture to be had. You kind of ducked your head and went to the tiny corner in Borders to find books. And they were all, like, nonfiction, depressing stuff. So to find that stuff online and sort of be, have a place was awesome. But at some point, I felt that you could step beyond that. And that's when I started writing, because I'm like, I love werewolf, vampire, urban fiction. That's the stuff I like to read. And I wasn't seeing those characters. I was seeing a lot of the same stuff over and over again. I mean, my favorite episode of Xena, when I actually was able to see the episodes, was Mel and Janice, because it skewed the stereotype, put it on its head. That was skewing this. I mean, I think that's something you'll find in my writing, is skewing that stereotype, because that's fun to me. Mm-hmm. And so at some point I'm all like, well, I just can't find what I want to read. And then I was like, well, why don't you put up or shut up? So I, decided I would write. And, if I wasn't seeing the stuff I wanted to read, then I should write something. Mm-hmm. And that's how I started. And I just wrote the stuff I wanted to read. I mean, we wrote a story, was Dead Can Dance. Never got a single piece of feedback on it. Nobody ever commented on the story. It's one of my favorite stories.
Okay, hold on for a second. I'm in the middle of rereading it right now, and I'm loving it. So there you go. There's your feedback.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
I will log on to the Athenaeum, and I will leave you comment. Okay?
Yeah. So I mean, it took years before we got some feedback, and then I think once we wrote Secret Histories and Chance, people went back and read some of that stuff, and we got a little bit of feedback, and we get.
Is that the one with the morgue attendant, the Dead Can Dance?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the zombies?
The zombies. Before zombies were cool. So.
and the bitchy librarian.
The bitchy librarian.
Yeah.
Yeah, Windstar does a great job writing characters. I feel like I write the same character over and over again, and she really, like, I'm going to write this. I'm like, okay. But the bitchy librarian is totally Windstar. That was her creation.
Of course it was. Canadians rock, eh?
Yeah, exactly. You and your hockey and Canadian whiskey.
Oh, God. That's not right.
Just for you, Andy.
Yeah,
I'm going out and about tomorrow.
You're going out and about?
Out and about.
I love that.
Gotta go to Canadian Tire. Get myself a new drill.
Oh, God. Well, I'll be seeing you in about, 30 days? No, a little less.
Yeah, less than that.
A little
26.
less. About 25? 25. Wow. That's exciting. I wish you were going to the GCLS Con, Zee.
Where is that?
It's in Dallas this year.
Oh, you couldn't get me to go to Dallas.
Oh, righty.
No, actually, oh, God, it's too hot for me there.
It is hot. But I live in South Florida. I know all that.
Actually, in my real life, I am super busy over the summer, so it's virtually impossible for me to actually take vacation over the summer.
Dang, that bites.
It's what justifies me getting a paycheck.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. You gotta do what you gotta do.
Exactly. So it's pretty hard for me to actually take time off over the summer. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's almost been an hour, so we got to wrap up.
I told you, I can get really chatty.
Oh, that's fantastic. We love it. We love chatty authors. Makes it easy. Just saying. Anything else you want to add, Megan?
No, other than the fact that I've got a good portion of your stories and yours and Windstar stories on my e-reader, and I will be continuing to read them. So that's because I don't have any time to read right now. That's a really big thing. So I'm staying up till like 1 o'clock in the morning, so I can finish stuff.
That's yourself.
Damn, girl.
Sorry? Oh no, I'm enjoying the hell of it. I haven't really. I'm doing renovations, so I haven't really had a chance to like sit down and read. So I'm really, really enjoying them. It's definitely a nice break.
Well, I'm going to have to reread, because I only reread the 2 that we talked about earlier, but I really do want to go back and read some of the other ones, because when I was cruising the website, I'm thinking, yeah, I remember liking that. Yeah, I don't remember the nuances of some of them, so, yep, I'm going to
I don't either, it's okay.
Yeah, I'll be cracking open the Academy and loading up. So thank you very much, Zee, for coming on.
Hey, thank you for inviting me. It was a good time.
It's been a hell of a good time.
Excellent.
Yep, and keep writing, damn it.
Oh, we will. We will.
All right. Thank you, Megan, for being my fantastic co-host.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure.
Nice to meet you, Megan.
It was nice to meet you as well, Zee. And I'm actually really glad I got tapped to participate in this one, because I've really enjoyed the stories. So
it's awesome. It's like a win-win. It's a love fest.
I know.
All right. So say goodbye to the listeners.
Goodbye, listeners. Thank you for listening to me prattle on.
Megan, you got something?
Not really. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
So long.